Okay, great. Good morning, at least for Pacific folks. And I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you today on the Interstate Technology and Regulatory Council's work on risk communication and some aspects of it specific to harmful cyanobacterial blooms. I want to acknowledge the work by my co-author, Christine Osborne of Utah Department of Environmental Quality, as well as other staff that were involved in the HCB team, as well as the Interstate Technology and Regulatory Council's overall risk communication team. So I just want to start with a brief overview of risk communication and the goal of providing science-based information in aspects that can be unfamiliar, stressful, controversial, but it's really providing information people need to make their own decisions for their own health and safety. So really being an advocate for people having the adequate information to make their own health decisions. And again, as I keep learning, it needs to be customized for the needs of the different audiences, and efficiency is not the goal, despite what I tend to want to do for this. So really meeting people where their needs are and focusing on their specific needs. So overall, again, I want to speak to what ITRC has developed for risk communication overall and some of the tools that are now available. Some aspects that are unique for harmful cyanobacterial blooms that you may not see in a standard risk cleanup site or for legacy contaminants, some of the communication recommendations we have, and then some opportunities to learn more about this. So as far as best practices, again, understanding what the audience may know already, what their concerns are, how meeting their needs in a way that they can understand, having empathy and understanding in your explanations, and really investing in building the trust and credibility that's necessary for them to listen and understand to the messaging that you're trying to convey. And so how can we do that? Well, identifying what your key messages are, focusing on that. Again, here's an example of a message map that can be used. Focusing on the health risk, and again, what information is in the advisory about activities that may threaten both human and animal health, as Lizzie just covered and was covered yesterday as well. And then coordinating and collaborating with other credible sources who that community trusts as far as providing information, as well as meeting the needs of the media, making sure they have your credible information in a timely fashion and they can help communicate that out to the public. If possible, developing the communication plans before the risk becomes an issue. I think, as I'll talk about later, that's more of a challenge, I think, for HCBs than maybe for chemicals that are around for a long time. Again, evaluating and revising as we go along. This is an iterative process, and hopefully we can adjust as needed. And then focusing again on the audience, the content, how and where you convey the message, and in what language is really key to making sure that you're meeting your needs of your audience and that they have the ability to share what they're learning. So how can we do that? The ITRC has developed a communication fact sheet. There's a hyperlink for that as well, but it's a 4-page PDF. It defines the overall terms that are used, identifies the key aspects that are conveyed, again, within this broader ITRC risk communication. The content of which the communication plans are recommended, the 8 steps as shown in the figure to the right, and some of the tools that are available. So I think this is a really approachable way to start if you're interested in this, to look through that. And then that, again, leads into the broader Risk Communication Toolkit, which again has a broader introduction and 10 really developed appendices that go through the templates, the tools that are provided, some of the examples, as well as some of the guidance. So recommend taking a look at it. That's how it's set up currently available. And there's also some great resources there. So I wanted to transition into, so what are some of the unique issues I see as far as cyanobacteria blooms versus legacy contaminants? And certainly a lot of things in risk communication, I think, are understandably based out of the much longer history of legacy contaminants. So they're called legacy because they tend to have stable concentrations over time. They've been out a long time. You're likely to have a long-term investigation cleanup at known locations, cleanup sites. You can provide consistent health risk and advice over time. You might have sampled, and years later, you're putting together documents as far as the cleanup and what people need to do. And so you need to and have the opportunity to invest in building relationships with those communities over that time period and providing the outreach. So it's really building that relationship, having consistent messaging, and investing in that. But for cyanobacteria blooms, it can be intermittent for a given location, even within the same season, but it can reoccur. Toxin production can be intermittent, and you really have to rely on your recent sampling and analysis to inform the risk. The potential health risk and advisories can change within a season, so within weeks to months, even for those locations that might have recurrent blooms. And so took a look at what kind of outreach you might think of for a community that's never had a bloom before, for one that's in the midst of a current bloom, what you might think about after that current bloom is starting to subside, and then ones that we increasingly have that really have a recurrent and ongoing bloom, and how the messaging might change. So I think prior to the first bloom, really building awareness of how to recognize a potential harmful cyanobacteria bloom if they see it. So providing a visual guide to the public, understanding how to report a bloom if they do see it, and helping advocate for that, and setting up that reporting mechanism. And then what precautions you would take if you or your family or your pets see a bloom or see something that looks suspicious. So generally turn that as like healthy water habits of what to do, and then really help instill those habits as an overall recommendation. And then if a community is in the midst of a current bloom, identifying what we know and don't know about that harmful cyanobacteria bloom at the given time, and when those updates will be made. So when they can look for it, and then where. So having a dedicated website, having a consistent call-in number, identifying what your social media channels are going to look like, and making sure they have the consistent language that you're trying to convey. Having advisories present if needed, and what the recommended precautions are, what's safe and unsafe to do at that water body, and then what is required to lift that advisory. And then again, not only having a recommended mechanism for reporting in a harmful cyanobacteria bloom, but if they do have a potential illness, how to report that in, and how to convey any information to their medical or veterinary provider. If the bloom is starting to subside, communicating that you may still have toxins present even after the visible bloom is dissipating, that you might have low dissolved oxygen as the biomass starts breaking down, so they might start seeing dead fish at that point, but maybe didn't earlier. That the blooms can reoccur. There might be a sense to which, okay, we made it through that period, so we're good now, right? And it's like, no, actually, this could reoccur, but we don't know for sure when it might appear, what genus might predominate, or what toxins might occur at a given time point for that water body in the future. So again, what do we know? What do we not know? And where can they learn more, and how they can get involved? And certainly for water bodies that are known for having ongoing and recurrent blooms, we've found that there could be an issue with the local residents might be aware of the issue, but somebody that comes in for the day or a short-term rental may not be aware of the issue. So needing to communicate and figure out the mechanisms of communicating the potential risks to both those audiences. And then communicating the potential management challenges and opportunities. Oftentimes there's a sense where, well, this is a problem, why can't we fix it already, And so trying to convey that there isn't an easy cheap or quick or all of the above fix for harmful cyanobacteria blooms, but that individual actions they can take, particularly with nutrient management, can benefit the water body in the long term, but it's going to take time. And some highlighting some volunteer opportunities, such as for community science monitoring, to have an active role in understanding the risk and helping achieve a better outcome over time. So some opportunities to learn more. Again, the ITRC's Risk Communication Workshop will be happening this spring. The ITRC's HCB guidance document has just been released. Section 5 is on risk communication and response planning. Certainly welcome your feedback on that. The training will be, the live training will be April 29th. I think you can register now for that. And it'll also be available on demand after that. And right now we have the Benthic HCB team that's ramping up and will be ongoing for this year. And you can register at the, that's a link to the team page, and I can put that in the chat as well. So thanks, appreciate everyone's time, and I look forward to questions and discussions in the breakout rooms in a little bit. Thank you.